Whatever you see is the symptom, it is not the problem. And so we have to dive deeper until we figure out what is the root problem. And when we talk about health and fitness, we're gaining weight because we don't exercise and eat properly. But what's the root cause of that? The root cause of that is that we feel like we don't have enough time, or it's not priority. And what's the root cause of that? And so we can keep diving further into what is the actual thing that we need to address. Hello, NAC Warriors. Happy Sunday. I hope you are having a warm Sunday. So today, I'm going to go deep today, or maybe deep in theory, but high in overview, because what I want to talk about today is more like when you're gathering information, how can we take things and put them in different context? And I've been doing this for such a very long time in my days, years actually, probably once I started getting into Tony Robbins. And one of the things that I would do is I was reading a ton of stuff back in since 2006, but I was like really heavy into reading, and I could not put a book down. As soon as I picked one up, I'd put one down and then pick another one up. And what was interesting about that is after you read so many different books, you start seeing like patterns of what people are talking about, especially if you're in the same genre. And with that, I started like taking things to work. And when I started reading something, I was like, okay, how do I actually apply this? Not just read it, because I was getting so much knowledge and there was nothing like fruitful from it except for just having all this stuff in my head. So I said, how do I actually apply it to my job? And that's where I started. That was the easiest because I was sort of at this point in time left alone to do what I wanted to do, and pretty much I could test things and see if they worked. And the way to do that, though, is you have to take it out of context, meaning that if you're reading about something in business and somebody trying to create a business or do something in business, how do you translate that if you're not a business owner, but you're just somebody who is working on at a transactional level? And I came across this book from Michael Gerber. It's called E-Myth Mysteries or something like that, E-Myth. And it was interesting because the way he structures it, it's in a way that you can apply it to any level, if that makes any sense. And that was sort of probably like my first or really big wake up moment, was like, oh, how do I do this? The other big takeaway was, I think I mentioned this before, but I would be in a position where there was this task that I had to do, a lot of tasks for that matter, and they would take forever, so much so that I had to spend my weekends traveling an hour away to go to work. And if we would have to do this every month, and this one task could take us a single day, and it drove me nuts. And I was at the point where I didn't like my job and I was thinking of leaving. But in the meantime, I picked up a book on Excel and programming, and a little bit of my background is I like programming. And why is this all important is because to pass my time, I was learning how to program in Excel and using Visual Basic. And it was just like me creating games, because that's what I did when I was younger with my father. And as I did that, I started, like a light bulb just went off, and I said to myself, whoa, like, couldn't I do this with the stuff that I'm doing? Like, isn't it possible to just, because we're putting all this stuff in text, and I can import text into an Excel spreadsheet like a CSV or something like that. And I said to myself, wow, like I can take these things and apply it here. And essentially what I did was I took a task that could take up to a day or more, and I brought it down to like 30 minutes. And that like was a big trigger of trying to take things out of context and place them into your world. Going back to Michael Gerber, really trying to figure out how to apply the things that I was learning into my own role. So pretty much my role, I considered its own business. I was the boss of this business. Yes, I did have some people I had to report to, and there were some guidelines, but those were my customers, right? That was my customer. But as long as they gave me the freedom to build what they wanted, then I was good. So I could take the concepts from building a business and put it into my own role. And that's where things started like really triggering for me, because now every time I sit down and read something, I think to myself, how can I apply this to as many things in my life as possible? And once I did that, I started breaking things down into the three categories I keep talking about: principles, fundamentals, and your journey. And when I read something now, I say, okay, how do I apply this in my relationships? How do I apply this into my health and fitness? How do I apply this in building my business? How do I put this into? And the more things that I could fit this thing that I read into those different scenarios, the more powerful that principle became. And so this is how I actually started really growing in my personal journey and really taking things to that next level. Because if you think about some of the things, let's say for instance we talk about your why, and I say how understanding your why can help you in your health and fitness, but I also say that it can help you in other areas of your life. And the more I read books, and I've just started doing it again recently. I went through a period of reading, and then trying to do. Now I'm back to the edge. I'm trying to actually do a bridge so I did a bunch of reading, then applying, right? Now I'm in the process of reading and applying at the same time, so that in real life as I'm reading, I'm actually applying things, which is more powerful. So my message to you today is that if you are a reader, or you don't even have to read, actually, it could be something that you watch on TV, it could be something that you watch, something you hear, anything out in the world that catches your attention, you can use these things in your life. And let me give you an example. This is like an extreme example, but it tests you. Like, it really makes you try to figure out how things work. So I was sitting there watching this show about Vikings, and you're like, Angelo, how does this have to do with health and fitness? Well, actually, it's the bigger picture, right? We're trying to take things that we see and apply them to whatever we're working on. So at this time in my job, in my role, I was having problems trying to figure out how to take out a backlog of issues while the issues were still piling on. So we had a root problem that was occurring that was creating a flood of issues, and we had this big backlog. And I've been like toying with myself, like different strategies. And I was sitting there watching this show, and I was watching this Vikings like stand there, and they got into this formation where they put a wall of shields up, and in between the walls they were taking their spears and poking the oncoming army. And I said and I don't know why it clicked on me, but that instant I thought to myself, that's how we handle like these the situation. Like, that's a strategy. Like, we put a line in the sand for all the backlog issues, and we say we don't allow any more backlog issues, and at the same time we start poking at the root cause, right? We start trying to figure out how do we eliminate the root cause while we keep a line at fixed, as we're not allowing any more backlog to what we already have. So that was from a show. And how do we apply this to, say, our health and fitness? Well, let's say you're gaining weight, right? Well, let's put a line in the sand, right? And just say no more weight we're going to gain, but instead we're going to figure out what is causing the weight. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I already know what's causing me to gain weight. I don't exercise, I don't eat, and I don't have time. And the root cause is probably you don't think you have enough time. And, a lot of us think of just like surfacey type of answers, which is what gets us into trouble, because usually what we see, I'm sure you've heard this before, like if you're in negotiations, the first no is not really the reason. There's always something further down. And that's like another principle, is that this is actually anywhere in life. Whatever you see is the symptom, it is not the problem. And so we have to dive deeper until we figure out what is the root problem. And when we talk about health and fitness, we're gaining weight because we don't exercise and eat properly. But what's the root cause of that? The root cause of that is that we feel like we don't have enough time, or it's not priority. And what's the root cause of that? And so we can keep diving further into what is the actual thing that we need to address. And maybe time is what it is. And let's say you're not really sure how to dive in deep. This is how you handle it, right? If you start working on, okay, I need to build in time for health and fitness, then you go and try to figure out time management, right? And then you go figure that out, and you somehow figure out, and that's where we come in, NAC Warriors and Awakening Your Inner Warrior. That's where I come in, and I help you figure out how to insert that into your life, and not even insert it. We find ways to incorporate it into your already busy life. And so that's the key there. So what we want to do is then we address whatever it is. Now, let's say we don't get the results. Let's say we think time is the actual problem that we're having with weight loss and being healthy. So we go through, and then we figure out time, and then we start doing something, right? And we're making some progress, or maybe that doesn't even work. So we have to start now diving in deeper. When something doesn't work, we shouldn't say, well, that thing didn't work. Maybe it was the root issue that didn't work, right? Maybe we pinpointed the wrong thing. Maybe it's not time. Maybe it's our feelings of what's important, and we don't have enough, let's say, we don't understand the concept of how much time do we have to spend. Because you may be thinking, well, in order to exercise, I have to do an hour. And I don't have an hour in my day to go exercise. Or I'm traveling so much, I don't have time to think about healthy foods and all this stuff. So you may have like a false belief that's actually the root problem to all this stuff. And so we got to break those down. And I'm just trying to take this like concept of taking something out of context. And really, so what we were talking about originally, if we go back to the original, was we started with the concept of me watching a show about Vikings and how they were going to handle their situation of backlog of oncoming army, and yet solve the root problem. Well, it's we applied that to gaining weight. And then what we then took was some other principles of understanding whys and going in deep and trying to figure out how do we make this happen. So long story short, or if I could conclude what I'm trying to say in today's live, is that what we want to do is, as we're taking in information from the world, whether it be conversations, whether it be reading, watching TV, whatever it is that we're receiving through our senses, take a moment from your time and think, how can I take this situation and apply it to other areas of my life, especially in our businesses, health and fitness, relationships, whatever it is that you are struggling with, if we can take that. So for instance, right now there is some controversy between in the family. But when we start solving that problem, when we're looking at it, what are the principles we can use, or what principles can we gain from solving those problems to solving other problems? Because they're going to come up. I actually have another problem that's going to be coming up later on this week that I'm looking forward to. And you're probably thinking, you're looking forward to a problem? Yes, because I've changed my mindset of bumps in the road and problems to actually um, figuring out principles that are going to help me. And the more I keep practicing this, the better I get at solving problems in life. And it's become a kind of a fun thing. Sometimes it's still scary because you're not sure. Like sometimes the outcome that you're looking at is important, and so it gets a little scary to kind of like explore as you are explore while you're experiencing and trying things, especially when it involves others, because they may not appreciate what you're trying to do. So it's that interesting dance in life that we really need to go through and start figuring out, will this actually work for me or won't it work for me, and how can I use this in other areas. So this Friday, right before I go on vacation, um, I'm super excited because this has been a problem that's been sort of bubbling up, and I'm excited because the principles I think I'm going to learn from this, at least my gut feel, is that I'm going to be able to take what I learned from that and apply it to many different areas of my life. And I'm super excited about that because what is that going to do with my health and fitness? What is that going to do with my business? What's that going to do with the things that I'm looking to do in my life to take me to that next level, right? And I'm a firm believer, as I keep saying, that when the world throws things at you, it's trying to not make your life difficult, but make you grow. And it's in that growth, those problems that we grow, that take us to that next level. And it's scary. It's scary because you're not sure what the right answer is, and you may have to go into a deeper conversation that actually feels uncomfortable, and it may address some things you're what's the word I'm looking for, like you're not brave, what's the word I'm looking for, like it it makes you feel vulnerable because you're not sure how to handle that, right? And if you feel like you're out of control and you're not in control, and your emotions can't you can't navigate because you're in the unknown, it gets very scary. But know that life is, if we can take a step back and just say, life is given this to me because this is a growth moment, and it's hard to do it in the moment. So try to do as much prep before you go into these situations, before you read a book, before you watch a show. Like open your mind and say, I'm ready for whatever's going to come at me, and what kind of resonates or resists with you, and then take that and say, okay, so if you're just watching TV, a lot of it is mindless. But if you can actually go in there and really tap into like something that's going on, because what does every show, movie, or anything have, right? If we think about it, the only reason it's entertaining to us is because there's like some sort of, usually there's like like the beginning, the challenge, and the solution, right? So that challenge, how do we feel with that challenge that they're facing? How do we solve it? How did they solve it? What principles did they bring in? And once we can figure those out, how can we use those to help us in the areas that we struggle with or that we want to grow in? And in this case, how can we use it to apply? How do we apply it to health and fitness? Now, here's where I would love to help you, because I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, health and fitness, how does that even, like, how do you take principles and apply it to health and fitness? I don't quite understand that. And that's where I can come in too. So if you are finding a principle or you see something that really resonates with you or you resist against, I'd be really interested in what that is, because if you could tell me what that was, I can show you how to apply it to health and fitness. And because if you help me do this, then this is going to help me grow as well. So it's sort of like a teamwork type of thing. So I love getting into principles and really trying to figure out what is it that really can be applied here. And you'll be amazed at what I can find and take out of context, because I've been doing it for so long, and apply the principle to health and fitness. Like right now, I'm reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and it's just so amazing. Like he should have changed that title to Think and Grow dot dot dot, and you fill in the blank, because literally that whole book could be translated into whatever it is that you want to achieve. And I think he kind of fell short on the world, um, to be honest, because I think if he would have done dot dot dot, he would have served a whole bunch more people than anybody who's trying to achieve riches, because that book is full of principles that can help you in all aspects of your life. So I'm really enjoying going through that book one more time. Before I read it, I was in the perspective of personal growth and riches, to be honest, but now I'm reading it in the perspective of health and fitness. But what's even more interesting that I find is that as I read it, obviously I'm not a millionaire right now, but as I read it again, I understand where I went wrong in the application of the book. And so it'll be interesting when I start applying this to health and fitness, what that's going to do in other aspects of my life. Because once you can figure out how something works in the world that you feel comfortable with, then you can translate it into the worlds you're not comfortable with. So for instance, like if there's a place that you're falling short on in your life, I can almost guarantee whatever it is that you're doing that you feel comfortable with, if you pull out the principles that are lying within that whatever you're doing, you can apply it to other areas of your life. So that's what I have for today. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and tomorrow's a new day. I will probably be doing this live again a little late tomorrow, probably around this time, maybe a little bit later. And tomorrow also is the inside in our Facebook group. So if you haven't joined our Facebook group, please do so. I think the link or the somewhere should be the Facebook group link to our Facebook group, if that makes any sense. But what the inside is once a week I go into our Facebook group and I do a live session where I show people how I actually find new information about health and fitness and learn sort of like live, and you get to jump inside my head and kind of see how I approach things, what I'm thinking about, what am I looking for, how do I process it, and especially as a busy individual, like I try to do it as quickly as possible, but sometimes I do get stuck into it. Like I think it was a few weeks ago, I got trapped into looking at BMI. I had to stop after an hour. So I still have a lot more I'm looking into that, because I think there's something there, or I feel there's something there that I can use to help take my understanding and helping others on their journey, taking some concepts there, pulling it out and really putting it in a framework or some process that somebody could use to help them on their journey. And I'm pretty close to developing something really cool, I think, with that information, and something that you can use with your phone, because, well, I'm not going to give it away quite yet, but yeah, I've got something coming up very soon about that too. So I'm building lots of fun things that that will, gotta check those words, right? I talked about that. That will help you on your journey. Okay. And one last thing. Well, actually, I'll leave you with this. Please, if you have a principle that you're not sure, that you like really enjoy, and you're not sure how to apply it to health and fitness, send it to me, either through message or whatever. And I would love to be able to see how we can apply that to health and fitness. And challenge me, right? Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation about that principle and see how you use it and how we can use it. And maybe we go even beyond health and fitness and what world you're using. Maybe we can use it in outside things that we want to accomplish in our lives. Okay, with that, have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.